What's happening, family, and welcome to the podcast, In the Black of My Mind. My name is Al Thomas, so do me a favor and go down to the bottom of the page and click subscribe and share, and do me another favor and tell everybody about this podcast. How many bodies? Everybody's. Tell everybody about the podcast. Today's guest is an amazing woodwind player. So much so that when I first heard him play, I was scrambling trying to find out who this brother was and what else he had done. He's received a bachelor's and master's degree in music from the Mecca Howard University, HU.
You know.
Okay, all right, I'm just checking. That was
a
test. Yeah, he's performed with and or toured with legendary artists such as Lauryn Hill, Nas, Wale, Eric Benet, and two of my favorites, Larry Graham and George Duke, and many more. He's a solo artist in his own right with a recently released project entitled Cacao. A professor of saxophone at Morgan State University. And in addition, he was named the best blues, pop, rock soloist and outstanding instrumental jazz soloist by the Downbeat magazine as part of the annual Student Music Awards. So you can see this brother's been doing this for a minute and stuff, and it's like it's not no overnight sensation here. And in 2011, Brent was named the best alto saxophonist by the Washington City Paper. Welcome to the podcast, Brother Brent Birckhead.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, man. No,
glad to be here.
It's a blessing that you're here, man.
No doubt.
Before we get started, why'd you cut your dreads, bro?
Well, it was 14 years. It was,
okay.
And I think it was time for a change. At that time, I felt like a different person. And when I cut my hair for like the next 6 months, I didn't even know who I was when I looked in the mirror. You know?
Yeah, I know all too well.
Yeah,
my locks are up there somewhere on the shelf and stuff.
Mine are back in my office right here.
Okay.
In the closet. Yeah.
It's interesting because now, like when I saw your dreads, I was missing mine and stuff.
Right.
You know, but it's like just before I cut them, I just felt like. They had gotten too long. I go sit in the car and I would sit on them and stuff. I close the car door and they get stuck in the door. I used to like to swim and it was heavy and I played a lot of basketball. So I make a move and I hit somebody in the face with my leg.
He said, "Whop!"
But if I had cut them back then, I probably would still have them today.
Right.
Maybe, but I got a hole in my fro right now, so that might not have been a good look and stuff.
Well, you still got the hairline though. The hairline sharp. The hairline sharp.
I'm trying to hang in there, brother. Long as I can, man. 66, man.
There it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, brother. So where were you born?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Born and raised.
Born and raised. So I was in Baltimore until I went to Howard, and then I spent about 8 or 9 years at Howard. So I got my bachelor's and master's. Got my bachelor's in 2008, master's 2010. Okay. While I was getting my master's, I was teaching at a school called Hardy Middle School, and I taught there all through my master's and 1 year after. But all along, I knew I was going to New York because for me, that's the other Mecca, the Mecca of jazz. Right. And I spent about almost 10 years in New York as well. Recently came back to Baltimore right after the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah. So what was it like growing up in Baltimore, man?
It was good. For me, I had a good experience because everywhere that I went, in my eyes, there were musicians that were far superior than I was, And also my older brother was a musician, and still is. Okay. So I watched him the whole time. He's 4 years older than me. So he played the trumpet growing up, but now he plays electric bass.
Okay.
He's been out in LA for almost 20 years now.
Oh wow.
So I watched him produce music. I watched him, practicing. I watched him do sessions from the house, bringing other people over and producing their music. So I was always watching him and hoping that one day I'd be able to play on that level. So I had that inspiration in the house as well.
Oh, nice. Anybody else in the house play?
Nobody else played, but my mother sang in the choir at Howard.
Okay.
So, but not professionally. My uncle is a professional guitarist,
Okay.
but he was located in the Newport News area when I was growing up. But yeah, those were my musical influences directly. You know.
Okay. Oh, cool, cool. Just flashing back to Howard for a minute, I didn't know until like maybe within like the last 10 or 12 years that Howard had, like choirs of that nature and a professional orchestra and all of that kind of stuff. I didn't go to Howard, but my money did. My daughter went. So,
oh man.
Yeah. So I was, and then. Years ago, I was in the military before I went to undergraduate school, and I was stationed at Fort Myer. So, I was in D.C. all the time. And a good friend of mine had, years ago when Howard had a men's baseball team, he had a scholarship and played for the baseball team. So I used to go over there and hang out. And, that's when I wish I had known prior to what I knew later on, because Howard is just an amazing place, man.
For sure. It was definitely a great place for me to grow. And it made me become a leader in a sense, I remember my freshman year, there were a lot of upperclassmen in the jazz band. I didn't get a lot of playing time. At least in the big band, what I mean?
Right.
I was like, man, I can do it. And then my sophomore year, one person graduated. One of the lead saxophonists graduated. The other saxophonist had to do student teaching, so they weren't in jazz band that year. And then everything was like, all right, I guess this is it. You're on lead now. I'm like, huh? I'm like, hold up. And I had to jump into that position. And thankfully, I'm grateful that it happened, because now I have to be the best sight reader in the band. I have to solo on most of the tunes. You know what I mean? I'm getting features now.
Okay.
And it was an opportunity for me to step out and get from behind everybody's shadow. You know what I mean?
Right.
And also around that time, the flute professor at Howard University hit me up and was like, "So when you going to start playing flute?" And then it was just straight up, no other question. He's just like, "When you going to start playing flute?" I was like, I guess next semester. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was barely playing flute at that time. But he said he just knew that I was going to need that skill.
Right.
So he said, when you going to start? And then we started the next semester, and I played in the flute ensembles. I was taking lessons. I ended up playing flute in the orchestra and so forth. So
okay, man. I was when I started watching some of the videos. I think you were doing videos like on Tuesdays or something like that.
On a Tuesday.
Yeah. And so I was. I'm checking you out, man. I'm sizing you up. I got no skills to hang with you, but I'm just saying. You sing?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Okay, I might be able to hang a little bit with the vocals.
Let's go.
No. But is saxophone your first instrument?
It is. Alto saxophone in particular is my first instrument. And then in middle school, the jazz band had so many alto saxophonists, they switched me to tenor.
Oh, okay.
So in the jazz band, I was playing tenor saxophone.
In middle school?
In middle school.
Oh, wow. So, man, in middle school, we're playing like Uncle Henry Fillmore, man.
Definitely. I was lucky.
March music,
right?
Man. Dang.
I was definitely lucky because for me, my middle school years set me up for college. We were learning a lot of the fundamentals that I needed then. I didn't even know it. It was just a part of the curriculum at that time.
Wow. That is awesome.
So I ended up doing the jazz band, and the jazz band is where I really kind of found myself, because I could improvise. I could do things that weren't on the page. Gotcha. And that kind of changed things for me. So,
when did you start playing clarinet?
Clarinet around the same time I started playing flute. One of my friends, he had a student model clarinet, and he was like, and he had just gotten for clarinets like the buffet R13, right? He had just gotten an R13.
Wow.
So he let me hold his old Yamaha student model, and then I started teaching myself how to play it, got books and everything like that. And then that started that journey. Not to mention, I was doing musicals at Howard. So with the theater department. And the reason that I bought a flute in the first place was because the musical called for a flute. Okay. You know, so I bought the cheapest flute, you know, that possible. You know, just so I could do the gig. Right. And in those moments, that pressure, you know what I mean, was what caused me to learn the instruments a little bit faster. You know what I mean? Right. So that's where I had to start playing flute and clarinet. Like it was just all in. You know, you might sound bad for a second, you know, but it won't be for long.
Right. You put that time in. Right. Yeah, clarinet was my first instrument.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting because someone asked me, do you remember the first piece of music that they gave you to play? And I said, yeah, I do. Unfortunately, it was called "Masses in the Cold, Cold Ground."
Go ahead.
For real?
Really?
Huh? This is what we playing? All right.
He said, "This is just for you."
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you know, I played clarinet from elementary school up to high school. Nice. And I was trying to play in top 40 bands, and you know, back then it wasn't cool playing clarinet, and in R&B and stuff. You know, in fact, during that period of time, the only person I knew that was playing clarinet was Benny Maupin. With the Headhunters and stuff. You know, so. Again, it wasn't cool, so I started playing flute, and I started playing flute on a dare, but that's a whole nother story. I don't want to go there, but yeah, man. So you played in school, you performed in local bands and things of that nature?
I did. I definitely did. So I'll say in high school, my band director started getting us gigs around town, right? So it was like 3 or 4 of us that were, that were improvisers on a level that we could play small group, right? So it was myself, a drummer named Dana Hawkins, who's still playing, and a couple of the keyboardists named George, and we would go around, play different places around the city, and this kind of gave us legs to, you know, lead a band, you know, and make set lists. You know, and all of the things that we're still doing today. So I was playing in high school. I was mostly doing that. When I got to college, of course, I was playing with the university bands, but I started playing with the local bands, cover bands, right? And one of my big breaks was playing with a group called Phase 2. At that time, they had won the Capitol Jazz Fest. And in that group, I was able to learn, you know, from more mature musicians, which is something that I really needed, to how to pace my solos, how to interact with the crowd, you know what I mean? How to read a crowd, to stop playing so many notes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because especially in college, when you're getting all that information in, like you want to get all of it back out. Right. You know what I mean? Everything
I can do this. Check this out.
Right. Exactly. So in groups like that, I learned, you know, the mechanics of being a professional musician. Okay. And I was playing in DC for a while. There was another drummer named Howard Franklin Fish, who I started playing with on the jazz side, the straight ahead jazz side. So he would come to my dorm, pick me up, drive me to the gigs, you know what I mean? And the whole thing, you know. Nice. So
I play some go-go down there?
Oh, definitely play go-go in a couple of bands, Y2K, DC Vibe, and learn the mechanics of horn section playing, you know.
Oh, right.
And both movement and playing at the same time, because it's also a show. And a lot of bands' horns are on the front line, you know. Right. And front line playing is different than playing in the back, you know.
Exactly.
So that was another level of crowd interaction, and making sure that I'm putting on a show while I'm giving a performance as well. Because many times, especially in jazz, we forget that it's still a show. You know what I mean? And the better that you're able to play your instrument and do these things, the better show you're going to be able to put on. You know?
Right. When did you know that you were going to make music your life?
Probably when I was 14.
Is that right?
Because at that time, my brother had just started college. He went to school, majored in music. So it was kind of and as I was growing up, he ran track, I ran track. You know, you're in the same house, you're doing the same things.
Oh, right.
You know, but when I was 14, I just realized, you know, I could affect people's lives in a different way than I knew. And it also was a social lubricant for me to make friends too at that time. So I really dived in at that time, you know, and it became the thing I could do best, the thing that I felt freest at, you know.
And it's a deterrent from the streets and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
And of course my parents too, because my parents weren't necessarily having that, you know.
Right.
It is what it is. You know, so thankfully I didn't see that trajectory for myself anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting how Baltimore turned around and stuff. I used to hang out in Baltimore years ago. I have a family that lived off of Cold Spring Lane.
Oh yeah.
And I guess Kitmore Road or
Kitmore, yeah,
Kitmore. They lived on Kitmore, and so we used to go down there, and I spend a lot of time with them. And so it was different then in the early to late 70s to when I went back down there again, like in the 90s and stuff. I was like, oh, wait a minute, this ain't the same Baltimore that I know and stuff. You know,
Right.
So how did you get started professionally?
Well, I think it was mostly in those high school years when we started doing these gigs around town. And it was, of course, everything took place in intervals. In college, I started doing a little bit of gigs here, started doing go-go bands here, started doing cover bands here, started doing jazz gigs here. And slowly but surely that ended up taking over everything. Because, of course, in high school, I worked at Walmart over a summer and did some temp jobs. But after that, I never had a 9-to-5 besides teaching music. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So right after college, I had a good base of performing gigs, and I had, of course, when I was teaching halftime while I was getting my master's, so I had that covered. I had full days and full nights, and that's where I was able to start making some money. I saved up about $9,000 at that time. That seemed like a lot. And I moved up to, of course, I bought a car, bought a computer, I bought a couple of good instruments, so that I'm still using them, now. But I made that investment then, and then I moved up to New York and cut my teeth up there. Still, while I was working with a wedding band in DC. So while it was slow, if it was slow in New York because I was brand new, I'll come back on a Saturday, make my rent for the month, and go back up to DC. I'm sorry, go back up to New York.
Right. So how did you get on in New York?
The same thing. The friend there was a guy named Mark Williams now he plays with the Basie Orchestra. Oh, wow. But he got me started in the go-go bands in DC, and he's a New York native. So right after school, he moved up to New York. So after that, he got me a gig in a brass band when I first moved up to New York. So that was my first regular gig, right? At that time, I was going out every single night. I was going to all the places where things were happening, like Smalls Jazz Club. Oh yeah. Fat Cat. I was going to the Zinc Bar on Tuesdays. I was going to the Village Underground, which is an R&B session where everybody came through. It was like a melting pot. And actually, the Village Underground is where I got most of my gigs. Oh, is that right? Absolutely. It was that's where I made the relationships to get the gigs with Lauryn Hill. Because everybody, all the touring acts were coming down there. They were coming there and singing and performing with the musicians that were there. And it was a good networking spot. You know, it was good hang. So though I was hanging at those places almost every night. There was a saxophonist named Ezra Brown who played at the Village Underground. And at that time he was getting ready to do his solo thing, and he started traveling, and he was never back in town. So he was like, can you do the gig? I was like, okay, I can make it this Monday. But I didn't know he was saying, can you take this gig permanent perpetuity? Yeah. You know.
Wow.
So that became another one of my that was a regular gig that I really looked forward to. And I cut my teeth there because they didn't give me any boundaries, right? It was great musicians, but there were no boundaries. They didn't say how long to solo. They didn't tell me what to do. And I really started to form a different type of style when I was there.
Okay. So you said that's where you hooked up with Lauryn Hill and.
Yes, that's where I got the contacts for Lauryn Hill. There's a guy named Igmar Thomas. And Igmar Thomas runs the Revive Big Band and the Revive Orchestra. And the Revive Big Band is like the top New York talents, young lions in the city. And I started working with Igmar's big band, and Igmar started working in the Village Underground. You know what I mean? And from there, they contacted Igmar to put together a horn section, and we were already in a horn section together, right?
Oh, okay.
So it was a natural matriculation. So
nice.
we got the call for one gig, which is very common for horn. You know what it is for horn players. Many times they'll come in town and they'll do one-offs or two-offs. Can you do the shows Baltimore, DC, and Richmond? You know what I mean? So we were like, okay. They said we'll call you for some more stuff. We were like, sure. You know what I mean? We're not expecting anything. And then it ended up being going on tour with her for about 3.5 years straight.
Oh wow!
You know,
what was that like?
It was. I learned a lot of lessons because for me that was my first long-term touring situation, where you have tours where you're going for a month, back for 2 weeks, going for a month, back for 1 week. You know, on a consistent basis. So it was a lifestyle change for myself as well. And you learn the things that you like and the things that you dislike very quickly, right? The things that make it work for you. How much do you really need to make to make a living? These are things that you don't necessarily know when you're in the grinding phase. You know?
You just want to play.
Exactly.
Trying to get out there. I get it.
Right. So that was the first situation where I was making decent money for a long period of time. You know what I mean? Similar to what I was making when I was teaching. You know, and I was traveling and seeing places that I'd never been before. So it was an experience that I really appreciate. Now I may play with her every once in a while, you know, but I don't have to do this gig anymore. Right. At that time, it was my first experience with that. I was like, I have to take this gig. I have to do the late rehearsals. I have to do, you know, the long sound checks. I got to do it. You know, but now I've had that experience. When I work with other people, I know what I want to do and what I don't want to do, whether I want to take the gig or not take the gig.
Right.
It's a different. I guess it's a different position.
Right. So I saw you. For those of you that haven't seen it as of yet, Brent is playing with SWV, a Tiny Desk concert. It's on YouTube. That was a dope situation there. Has you been doing things with them in the past as well?
No, this was the first. This was the first. So SWV is one of my favorite groups from the 90s. You know what I mean? And I end up playing some of their music in my sets, jazz versions of their songs. So I got the call from trombonist Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones is a Baltimore-based trombonist and the musical director for SWV called Curtis. And myself, Curtis, and the trumpeter Theljan Allen, we end up doing quite a bit of work together. So in Baltimore, we have, there's a certain amount of horn players. So Curtis called me up, told me it was a tiny desk, didn't tell me who it was for. And I was like, man, I don't know if I could do it. And then he was like, man, it's for SWV. I was like, I think I could do it.
I'm there.
Yeah. And it was definitely a special experience. It was nostalgic. It was my wife's birthday week too. Okay. So I was able
to come hang out.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes.
Cool.
So it was very cool. I was really happy about that. The crowd was so hyped. And they were singing all the words. And
I heard.
Right. And while we were doing it, it's one of those moments where you realize this is a classic moment.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was definitely grateful to be a part of it. I think people are going to enjoy that for a long time.
When I'm watching you guys at the horn section, I'm thinking either they've been playing with her for a while or these guys been playing together for a while. Because I'm looking at you guys, I don't see any sheet music.
No.
So because a lot of times guys are coming to town. It's like, yo, here's the charts. Just play this stuff, and whatever.
Right.
But yeah, so I figured one of the two.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I mean, it was one of those situations. You get the music a couple of days before, you cram, and then you go in and you do it. Right. And I believe it or not, I have a lot of experience doing that. One of the other touring gigs that I did was with a guy named Blitz the Ambassador. Now, Blitz the Ambassador was a director for The Color Purple. That just played.
Play.
But yeah, okay. not the play, the director for the movie that just came out.
Right. Okay.
But before that, he was, and he still is, but he's an MC from Ghana. And his show is all horns and it's all dancing. Right. Oh, wow. So I got a call from the same guy, Ezra Brown, like 2 days before to do like a tour in Canada. And this is like an hour and a half of straight horns. So I had to cram all of that plus learn the dance routines within like a day and a half. No sheet music, no anything.
Oh wow.
Wow. So it was one of those. It wasn't quite as stressful as that, but those situations do come up. Where it does happen, where you have to cram and you have to get everything, and sometimes if I know if I can't do it, if I'm not going to have the time to do it, I may pass on some of those gigs. But I also like the challenge as well.
Oh, right. Well, so then you got to rely on your memory and
exactly
and your ear.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. I had one of my mentors say, he was like, as you get older, there's more things on your mind. So he was like, he said, man, he don't have nothing on his mind. Of course he sound good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna remember that.
Oh man.
Oh man. Wow.
Oh man.
How did you get into teaching?
I was a music education undergrad major.
Oh, okay.
So what ended up happening was the place that I student taught at, they hired me to be the woodwind teacher. Okay. And there was my mentor was Yusef Chisholm. So we ended up splitting the program. He did the brass, I did the woodwinds. And during that time, that's how I ended up developing a teaching style. Right. And it was intense because at that time I hadn't taught in the classroom, not all day. And I'm not going to say I won't do it again, but I'm not going to be there in that context anymore. Right. Okay. So it was like super intensive classroom experience where I had to learn how to be a much better communicator, right? Communicate from zero, from zero knowledge base. Right. And I've used these skills all the way up until now. So now my teaching looks different. Now I'm teaching, I might teach master classes. I may teach one-on-one, You know, I may do like like a week with a jazz band. You know what I mean? Getting them prepped or something like that. So I took those experiences and used them to be an effective communicator and to like spread the joy that I have when playing music and let them experience it in that way too. Okay. You know, let them know that it is hard work, but it's once you get it, it's fairly easy. You know what I mean? It's fun. You get to communicate in a way that very few people get to do, but you get to spread love in a way that everybody wants to do. So, how did the pandemic affect you, your music and you personally? It affected me greatly, right? So during that time, right before March of 2020, I was in Paris. We were about to go on a month-long tour of all of France. So we got there, and then 2 days later, we saw all of these European countries shutting down. So before we even got to play one show, they had booked us tickets back home. And at that time, we didn't know if we were going to be able to get home or anything like that. I was coming back to New York. And of course, my wife was mad that I even went in the first place. And then when I got back, she wasn't there because she went back she's a DC native. Okay. So she went back to her parents' house because we were in New York, and New York was the epicenter, right? Yeah. It was, and even in that time, 2 people in my building had passed away, right? Oh, wow. Like almost instantly, which was crazy. And I got back and I was like, babe, it's gonna be like a week, 2 weeks. We're gonna be good. And then it was like, actually, I'm gonna have to come back down too. So that was the moment that I came back to the DMV area, and didn't know that it was going to be there was going to be finality to it, right? So we of course we were still paying rent up there until our lease was up, and then we figured, I was like, okay, we don't know how long this is going to last, so let's get comfortable. So at that time, there was a lot of uncertainty, right? But I knew, especially being in the place that I grew up and the place that I developed, it felt like this was another one of those times where I was going to have to dig in again. Oh, another time that I may not be able to get back again. Thankfully, but at that time, if I had kids, it would have been different, right? Everything would have been different. But at that time, I dug in. I went twice as hard. I set up a routine for myself. You know, meditation, walks, fasting, practicing all of my instruments: saxophone for an hour, flute for an hour, clarinet for an hour, oboe for an hour of writing. You know what I mean? Right. And this was every day, five days a week, break on weekends. You know, buying studio equipment, right? So I could present online, so I could start to make money. You know what I mean? And I had to adjust my teaching style so that I could communicate even more clearly on a platform where they couldn't see my hands, on a platform where they couldn't see my my body language, right? So I had to take my communication skills up a notch. I had to start using the technology to present music, right? With the live streaming. I had to start producing my own music in-house. Oh wow. Right? Yeah. So I had to create tracks, right? And so forth. And I had to learn how to sell myself online, right? As far as a brand. So it made me think about all of these things, because live performance was out of the window, was thrown out the window. There was nothing else. So I had to figure out what skills, with the skills that I had, what could I do to make the most of this situation, applying for grants, you know, finding money, you know. So these were the skills that I had to harness. And in that, you know, I got into this writing habit where I started writing, for me, the best music that I've written. You know what I mean? The quickest that I've ever written. Okay. You know, okay. I started taking more chances. I started using more of the instruments in my music. You know, so that was also, I felt like I had a growth spurt there as well. You know. Gotcha.
Oh, so you definitely made the best of the bad situation.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, because I know that a lot of. Well, we lost a lot of musicians during that period of time.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of musicians during that period of time. And, you know, then there was a lot of musicians up here. I'm in Connecticut. And there's a lot of musicians up here that were just struggling, man, through that whole period of time, man. Couldn't work. And it's a different modality now. You know, it's not like that. You know, there's no more brick and mortar stores where you can, you know, you're selling music and stuff. You know, and you know, and very few folks are releasing CDs or actual physical property that you could take with you. You know, so now it's about how do I now go around this music business and figure out my place in it. You know, where can I make some money and how can I, you know, be effective in what it is that I'm doing. Right. So it's just kind of say it was tough. Really tough.
Definitely, it definitely was a tough spot. And I know a lot of people, of course, some people retired, they stopped playing, you know what I mean? Some people ended up getting totally different careers, you know, all understandable too. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Oh, truly.
You know, so truly. It's, I feel fortunate that I was able to keep doing it and get stronger, you know? So.
Going back to when you were talking about touring, are there any memorable touring moments? Anything that just sticks out that when you were out on tour?
Man, there were a bunch. I'll give you one that's very just general. There was a summer that we were doing Europe, and we were doing festivals. So this was my first time doing festivals and not festivals in that context, but festivals where we were playing for 40 to 80,000 people. Wow. So these were like surreal moments when you're looking over a sea of people, right? And it's such a different musical experience, you know? Right. And I almost froze one time because it was so crazy. You know what I mean? It was like out of a movie. You don't think it'll happen, but it was like, shoot. It's like, you know, so that general experience was a first time experience for myself, and very few. And as you get older, there are fewer and fewer first times, right? So that was one of those moments where I realized, oh, this is the first time that I've been able to have this experience as a whole. Another experience was one when we got kicked off of an airplane in Europe. Same tour.
What happened?
There was a flight attendant that refused to let us put our instruments in the overhead. He said they wouldn't fit, even though they were totally empty. It was just one of those things where it was a power move. You know what I mean? Right. And one of the guys, he started arguing with one of the guys in the band. And it escalated to the point where the flight attendant was screaming. Everybody, then the police came, and it was just a bad situation over an ego trip. You know what I mean? Right. And the plane was delayed, like I guess it was like 3 or 4 hours for the people that were on the plane, right? Right. Because we had to we had wardrobe on there. There were instruments on the bottom of the plane. There were like a bunch of bags. So it took like an hour to deboard us. Right. And then it ended up taking off 3 hours later than it was supposed to. But that was definitely memorable. Because I also on that flight. Well, in passing on that flight, we met Terry Lee Carrington as well. She was on tour with her group at that time. So this was a tour of many firsts for me. You know.
And who were you with at that particular time?
That was Lauryn Hill. That was
Okay.
That was my first tour. We did a European tour for about 3 weeks, and we also did Tunisia and Africa as well in that time. But there were a lot of firsts in that tour. You know?
Wow. So how did you guys how did they resolve it?
We got kicked off. We had to take a bus, a sprinter, a couple of sprinters to our next location. So
wow.
Yep.
Oh,
so we ended up driving overnight.
Dang.
Crazy.
Yeah. No, that's ridiculous. What airline?
I can't remember. It was a small European airline.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a major airline.
Got you.
But in Europe, it's one of those planes that they fly from country to country country to country in Europe. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
I got some rapid fire questions.
All right, let's go.
What are your hobbies?
Working out. I think that's my biggest hobby right now.
Okay.
I enjoy the ritual of moving my body, right, and making myself stronger with routine. For me, it feels like the same thing as practicing the instrument.
Okay.
Okay. But it makes me feel better. It makes my mind clearer. So.
Yeah, I sat on the couch for a whole bunch of years. Well, yeah. I was a college administrator.
Okay.
And I did that for almost 35 years, and and played music on the side.
Right.
Which again is another long story. But I was scheduled to retire April Fool's Day 2020. All right. They sent us home March 10th, and I figured, we'll be out for a week, maybe 2 weeks, not understanding that we're going to be out, period.
Yep.
Only thing I did was practice at night. I would practice my flute. Every night I would start practicing at 11 o'clock.
Right.
And I had the whole day to play. So don't ask me why I started playing at 11 o'clock. Every night I would practice at 11 o'clock. And I just sat on the couch. And I sat on the couch and I sat on the couch. And I had been very active prior to. I worked out, played a lot of ball. And I worked out at least 3 days a week. Sat on the couch, until I just, and started gaining weight and, and not feeling right. And so, I had to eventually, just this past March, started working out again, but I play a lot of golf, and so we're walking, but right. I'm not, I wasn't lifting any weights. I wasn't squeezing nothing, man.
Right.
So I didn't have that strength. So, just starting to work out again in March. So I truly appreciate what you're saying and stuff. You definitely, you feel better, and I, for whatever reason, I feel more confident when I'm working out. Not that I'm going to try to fight anybody, man. I can't fight, but
No, but I think when your body moves better, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think you definitely feel that confidence, you walk better,
Right.
Right. So getting those things fired up, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, and move it or lose it.
Right. That's it. It.
What's the greatest accomplishment of your life?
Man. Greatest accomplishment. I think the realization that you can change lives with music, you can change people's moods. The fact that I can bring you back to a certain moment in your life with just a couple of notes, right? I think that in this, I always knew these type of things when I was coming up, especially when you play in church and you see how people react to it. But in churches, it's isolated. You don't realize it works in the real world. I think it became even more clear when I wasn't able to perform for people during the pandemic.
Right.
And when I came back, I can even look at myself on camera. Right back then, I'm like, oh man, that's a different person. You know what I mean?
Right.
It feels like now it feels like I'm playing for a different purpose, a greater purpose. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. You don't take it for granted now.
It's very true. You know, and when I'm able to get in front of people, I'm gonna make you feel something. You know, hopefully I make you feel good. You know, hopefully I make you feel alive. You know,
exactly. So. What's on your bucket list?
Well, as musically, there's still people that I really want to play with, and I'll give you a couple of those names: Herbie Hancock.
Oh yeah.
Christian McBride.
Yeah.
So in my peer group, I want to play with Christian Scott. Okay. In my peer group, I'd like to play with Theo Hill, another great trumpeter. Bucket list things that I'd like to do as far without music. Man, I'd like to. There's places that I'd like to go. Egypt, I'd like to see the pyramids before I go.
Same here.
You know, I would love to go to South Africa. I haven't been to South Africa yet. As far as places I want to go, most of those places right now are in Africa. I want to see the Aurora Borealis. Maybe in like there's a trip to Iceland that you can go to. Or Alaska, one of those places to see Aurora Borealis in person.
Right.
You know,
man, I went to Alaska when I was in the military. I wasn't there for any extended period of time, but I was like, I don't know if this is a place. I got friends that do the cruise up to Alaska and stuff.
Right. Yeah, my uncle was stationed in Alaska, in Anchorage.
Okay.
Yeah, for a while. I think during the early 90s he was there.
Wow. Yeah, no, I was there on my way to Korea to be stationed in Korea. So, but that's again. Yeah. What skill would you most like to learn?
I'd like to know how to play the bass for real. Okay. I would love. I mean, and I think that's something that's possible. But that's definitely something that I've always wanted to do. Outside of music, let's see. I'm not sure. I haven't done much. Actually, I'd like to go to space.
Really?
I definitely want to go to space.
Okay.
If there was an opportunity, I'd definitely take that. You know.
Right. Shoot, you got NASA right down there in Maryland and stuff.
Right, Greenbelt, right around there.
Yeah, that might be reality and stuff, bro.
It's true. It's true.
Be the first person to play sax in
space. Come on now.
Yeah.
We're going for first times now.
Exactly. Well, anybody that's listening to this podcast, if you can make that happen for my brother,
let's go.
What's the coolest place you've traveled to date?
Let's see. One of my favorites was Batumi in Georgia. The country.
Right.
Because it's in the middle of Europe, but it's tropical, right?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's tropical heat near the water, you know, Black Sea. And the people there rarely get consistent music. So when you go there, it's a celebration. That's been my experience. Okay. So, but one of my places is Batumi, Georgia. Also Tokyo, Japan. For me that was my first trip out of the country. So, quite an experience because coming from the United States, and then first time going out of the country, you're teleported into a different universe. When you go, when you're in Tokyo, everything is different. The volume level is different. The skyline is different. The colors are different. The smells in the air are different. You know, So that was, for me, that was a transformative experience. One of my favorite places. And generally anywhere in the islands, specifically, one of the most beautiful I've seen is Dominica, which is a small island in the Eastern Caribbean. But I definitely like the feeling of being in the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely my thing.
Yeah,
I've been to Dominica yet, but I've been to a bunch of islands in the Caribbean.
Right.
What makes you unique?
I mean, that's a tough question. I'm a culmination of all my experiences. I'll say that. So everybody that I come in contact with, I take a little bit from them. And as I get older, I am not as afraid to be myself, you know?
Right.
And I think that may be a coming of age thing, but I care less what other people think, and I go into what I know is right. So I guess those attributes make me unique. The ability to go in a certain direction, even though others may not support it, they may not care about it, but I'm going to go because I know it's my path.
Right.
You know, and I feel that when I speak musically, that's what creates my own voice as well. The ability to break away from the things that I've learned from to create my own path, right? And doing so, not egotistically, right, but just in a way that this is what I know is the right path for me right now. This is what sounds best to me right now, you know. All while taking from all of the experiences that I've had. So that's fairly general, but I think that's what makes me unique in that manner, you know.
What's the most important decision you've made to date?
Probably marrying my wife. You know, so
I second that emotion.
Yeah, I think so, because she tells me the truth, you know, and lets me know when something isn't right. You know, she knows me from a young age, so she knows when things change. You know what I mean? And she generally points me in the right direction and supports me when I go off and do my thing. You know, right. So I think that was a key. That's a key part of my success. You know, having a good partner.
What's your favorite song? And that song that you wrote, because that's like children, you know, you can't pick a favorite child, but
exactly. I would say probably Blue and Green. It's a toss up right now. Between Blue and Green by Miles Davis and Infinite by Wayne Shorter.
That I don't know. I got to go look that up.
That one's another good one. Both ballads. I don't know why I'm picking ballads right now, but the album, of course, Kind of Blue was one that was transformative for me, because two of my favorite players were on it at that time as a saxophone player, Cannonball and Coltrane. You know, so that was just one of my that was my album, you know, as it was for many people, because as we know, Kind of Blue sells 5 million copies a year, you know.
Exactly.
So it's in most people's collections, but it's one of those transformative albums. And Blue and Green just puts me in a meditative space, you know, where I don't have to move so fast.
Right.
You know, where I can take my time and just melt, you know what I mean? And not worry about anything else. And I think that's one of the powers of music. It takes you to a different place. And that's one of those songs that does it for me.
Who's your hero?
I have many heroes. Definitely, of course, my father. I would say, you know, just for giving me a good example of what it is to be a man and not stifling me, right? Letting me go where I needed to go and learn my lessons where I needed to learn them, you know. Of course, my brother is another one, because I was able to watch him. He was able to do everything first. so I could have a clearer path, you know,
Right.
a path of less resistance. Now, musical heroes that are alive today, Kenny Garrett is one of them.
Oh man, I was just getting ready to say.
Yeah, so Kenny Garrett is definitely a hero of mine.
Yeah.
Donald Harrison, another hero.
Hmm.
Gerald Albright, I love.
Gerald, yeah.
And actually, those may have been like second and third albums that I got. I got like Kenny Garrett Songbook, and I got like the Gerald Albright. I can't remember. It's his only straight ahead album. It's not Live at Birdland, but it's called Giving Myself to You. And Stanley Clarke is on that album. George Duke is on that album.
Oh, wow.
Harvey Mason is on there.
Harvey Mason.
Yeah. So those two at that time were in my ear a lot. So those two, you know, I've learned countless lessons. Those that have passed, Cannonball Adderley is a hero of mine. Because I think he combined the soulfulness with the technical. Right. In a way that hadn't been done before. Even though Bird was both of those things, right? But Cannonball took it to a different place. Right. And I think he's truly special. Train, of course, I said him before, a hero of mine because he was so different. And besides Kind of Blue, the next album that I got after Kind of Blue from John Coltrane was Giant Steps. Which totally blew my mind, you know.
Everybody.
Right. I was like, what in the world? And I was showing my mother. I was like, Mom, listen to this. And of course, she's not a jazz musician. Right. But I was just so amazed at what he was able to do. You know, it was something that seemed impossible at the time, you know. So for me, those are the moments that made me dream bigger, you know.
Wow. Wow. It's funny when you say Kenny Garrett. I've been listening to his Tiny Desk concert. Like every day, once a day, every day for the last 2 months and stuff.
Yeah.
He's just so tough.
I think he has that ability he plays music straight from the heart.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
you can't help but feel it.
Exactly, and that's what I admire about him. And one of the things that I dream to be able to do, you know what I mean? To be able to do it on a deeper level, right? So every single time, it goes cut straight through, you know.
Oh, you are definitely making people feel the music. Don't even trip, man. I'm telling you, man, because when I first heard you, man, I was feeling it all up in the chest cavity.
That's a beautiful thing, brother, man.
Yo, man, this brother's he got something, man. Yeah, man, you doing your thing. I ain't even mad at you, brother.
Oh, that's love.
Yeah. Oh, truly. Tell me your life story in one sentence.
I am a musician who drinks tea loud. I'm a loud tea sipper. I love my family. And I am a constant seeker. So I think those things cover most of the bases.
and we're gonna end it on that. How can people get in contact with you on social media?
Social media, you can go to Instagram at Brent Birckhead, and the same thing on Facebook, and that last name is Birckhead. I'm also on TikTok, where I often go live, and you can check me out on my website as well, BrentBirckhead.com, where you can check out the dates. We got merch. We have music videos that you can check out and consume, and we definitely want you to be a part of the Birckhead community. Oh
yeah, definitely. There was one concert I watched. Where was it? Was it at Kennedy
Center?
Center, yeah. That show was an excellent show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man. I was, and so I started yo, bro, you got to check this out. I'm sending people the link and stuff.
Right.
Man, everybody that'll listen, I've been saying, yo, you got to check this brother out. You got to check him out.
Oh man, thank you.
No,
yeah, that was from, I think Kennedy Center was from 2019.
Okay.
When the first album came out, so that was definitely a special moment.
Yeah. Oh, it had to have been. I've only been to the Kennedy Center once, and that was to see Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor did a live recording there, and so I went one night, saw him, and then went back the next night. And I was like, yo, this. But I mean, I've never been there to see live music and stuff.
Right.
So.
Right.
We're looking at some point to get back down to the DMV and stuff permanently. So
absolutely.
At some point, I'll be able to take advantage of all the things that are happening down there. But
sure.
I'll be down there soon if I'm not mistaken, and I definitely hope I'm down there when you're playing, because
for sure,
come see you live and stuff. Definitely
for sure, that would be dope.
Yeah, man. But once again, man, I appreciate you doing this, and I got your contact information now, so I'm gonna wear out my welcome, bro.
Let's go.
All right, well, thank you again, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. All love.
All right, yeah, definitely. Much love, bro.
Yes.
This has been another episode of In the Black of My Mind podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Until next week, y'all be blessed.